Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you are staying warm and staying, I guess, dry is the right word. It's cold and somewhat wet outside still from the wintry mix from yesterday. So today I don't even have a slideshow to go through, mainly because I want to make this an open discussion. Katra and I were actually texting yesterday, and it was perfect timing because I'd already kind of had this in the back of my mind as something to talk about today. And then she experienced something that kind of reaffirms where my thought process was going anyway. So today we're going to talk about creating a sense of urgency for our clients or potential clients and leads, etc. This will apply for buyer and seller alike. And in large part, Richmond is in a very unique stance because if you listen to the news or the media across nationwide, they will say the real estate market shifted and it's slow and there's things that are down and it's a buyer's market and all these things. That is not the case in Richmond. Richmond is very much still a competitive market. It is still leaning heavily seller, meaning that it is still a seller's market. Now, it's not to say that buyers can't get opportunities out there, and we definitely have shifted from the craze of the last few years. But things are still selling quickly, especially the last like 30 to 60 days. Um, just to give you a couple of numbers that'll illustrate this, I had four closings for 2 million in December alone. It was my busiest month, second busiest month of the entire calendar year for 2025, where most people would say December is a slow month with 2 weeks of the holiday. It wasn't. We closed all the way up until December 29th. Um, you can still have business now. Now, with that being said, too, not to just toot my own horn, January has already been a better month productivity coaching wise than all of 2025 had any months. For that being said, we've already had three closings. We have another one tomorrow, and we have two pending for February already. So for those agents that are out there saying, "Oh, it's that time of year, it takes a little bit to get going," that is not true. Now, one of the easiest ways to create a sense of urgency for your clients and for yourself is to double your activities. And maybe you don't actually double it, but if you make an attempt at doubling your activities, you will create more business. In other words, it's going to take more conversations now to do the same amount of business. As the market continues to pick up, AKA as it gets warmer outside and people are going to open houses or touring homes because it's fun, not because they have to, you will then get more business naturally or organically. But right now, we are in our houses because it's 24 degrees outside. And or yesterday is a prime example. When the weather is crummy, open house traffic might not be as busy. And that doesn't mean we don't have to be as busy. We can still make those attempts, make those calls. Now, when I use the word call, this has been a discussion in a lot of like real estate coaching groups that I'm a part of. Some old school coaches will say you actually have to pick up the phone and dial. Us newer school coaches say that's not necessarily the case. You can text, you can voice text, you can video message, you can FaceTime, you can call. My two favorites are voice text and FaceTime. Now, FaceTime only works if you have an iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, I'm sure there's an equivalent. I don't know it because I have an iPhone. But FaceTime is nice because it lowers that like weirdness factor of why is this person calling me? Is something wrong? Because they see your smiling face. Now, it may still feel weird in the beginning because they're like, why is Katrin FaceTiming me? She's never FaceTimed me before. And yet you answer and you're like, hey, I was just thinking about you. I wanted to reach out and see how you guys were doing. Look how much snow we've gotten. It's crazy how 30 minutes north of the river can look so different versus, and the irony of it is my dad, who lives in the West End, lost power all day yesterday and they didn't get any snow. They just got wintry mix. I'm 25 minutes away from him. We have an inch and a half of snow and we never lost power. And we usually lose power if somebody sneezes too hard outside. So, uh, benefits of country living, I guess. Now, that being said, uh, interest rates, not sure if you heard, they're at 3 year lows, meaning they're the lowest they have been in the last 3 years. That is important for buyers and sellers. Now, one of the things you should be saying to your clients, and this would be a great message that you say when you FaceTime them. Now, it's not what you're going to say hello with. We'll do a mini role play here with this in a second. Um, when they ask you how the real estate market is doing, because they're going to ask you, especially if they know you're in real estate, you can say, actually, interest rates are at 3-year low, which means it is now more affordable to buy a house, or it's more affordable to borrow money. Excuse me, don't say buy a house. It's more affordable to borrow money than it has been the last 3 years. Now, prices have gone up. That's why I corrected myself, because it doesn't necessarily immediately translate to affordability. But that's what you're trying to get to, is you're trying to have that conversation. I was talking to a past client last week who his wife wants to sell their house and build a custom home. The buzzword there being custom, because I said, great, where are you looking to be? And they said, Goochland, but not past Food Line, which is basically the West End. And I said, okay, are you prepared to pay over $1 million? And they're like, what? No, we can't go anywhere near that. And I was like, okay, well, that's what it costs to build a custom home in that area. The key word being custom. Even to build a spec home, meaning the builder's already built it and picked everything out with an exception of a few finishes, would still be 800 plus. Now, I know that because I know that market. If you don't know that off the top of your head, you can look it up. We'll go through some skill practice on another call on how to do that in the MLS. But there are ways that you can run searches to look for new construction, or you can look for certain areas and see what's available for sale. You can also look at what pended or what sold, and that'll give you a general idea of what things are going for that type of house. Well, in having this conversation, the husband said to me, well, yeah, she was hoping we could sell our house and pay kind of around what we paid to get something newer. And I was like, that's impossible. Just use logic to follow that, what you just said. You want to use the cost of an older house to buy a newer house. Well, something's got to give. It's either going to be significantly smaller, it's going to be in a worse area, or it's not going to be newer, or it's going to be more expensive. Like, you got to give somewhere. That's just simple economics. And we talk to our clients this way, not to be rude or to discourage them, but it's a lot more effective too if I can ask questions. So I did not just say, well, it's got to be $1 million. Sorry, good luck, can't afford it. Notice how I said, are you prepared to pay over $1 million? No. Okay. Are you willing to do more of a spec home or a pre-built builder home where you could pick finishes? No, she really liked the idea of custom. Okay. Are you open to other areas? You have to ask these questions to get them talking. They're going to come to their own realization, which they did. They came to the realization of it's too expensive, doesn't make sense to move. Now that's when I can then, if I have a relationship with the client, educate them. These folks are repeat clients of mine. I sold them their first house, sold that house, helped them buy their house they're in currently. They've done 3 transactions with me. So I have a pretty strong relationship with them. They've also sent me referrals. So I have earned the right to then say, by the way, if you wait, it's only going to get more expensive. The area you're trying to be in is one of the most highly sought after areas in our market. I'm dealing with this with a totally different client as we speak. They wanted to see a house today at 1. The house sold yesterday. It was on the market for 12 hours. And it sold. And they couldn't understand that. They were like, well, and it was funny. The husband goes, well, it's that time of year, I guess. And I was like, huh? It's January 19th. That time of year would be if it was May 19th. Now they have a house to sell, so they wouldn't have been able to compete on this particular house anyways, which I somewhat knew in the back of my mind. But to keep them happy, I requested the showing. And I was going to show it because it does get them further down the road, because what they're currently dealing with is they have not understood yet. And the more we look at, the more they get there of they're going to have to sell their house first and either move in with in-laws or do a rent back and be ready to jump when they see a house they like, because where they're looking is a highly competitive area. So we look at these houses and they sell right away. They can't compete if they're contingent, meaning they have to sell their house first. And so I'm showing them the house to create a sense of urgency, the title of today's topic, because I'm showing them the house to say, hey, we missed it. I know you liked it. It's gone. The only way we would have been able to compete with this if your house was already under contract. Let's talk more about getting your house ready to list it. Now, then from the seller standpoint, this also creates a sense of urgency for them, because A, they have to get their house ready to sell, and B, they have to have their ducks in a row of where they're going next. If we get their house ready to sell and it sells and they don't know where they're going next, well, now they have a sense of urgency, which is a good thing for us. There's a joke kind of comment around real estate, and I've had this with realtors in and outside of KW, where we'll say something on the lines of, my favorite type of lead is a seller that has to move. Or I have one currently, like they're military, they're getting what's called PCS or relocated to another base in another state. The husband has to start work by August 1st in Washington State. So they're moving whether he likes it or not. Now they don't want to carry 2 mortgages, so they got to sell. That's the best kind of lead because they have to move. It's for his job, and his job is kind of an important one. The military is moving him. They're paying him to move. So he's like, we got to move. There's none of this like, oh, well, could we get this price? Or could we rent it? Or could we do this? That's not an option. It's, we have to sell. Let's get it sold. That's the best kind of lead. Not all sellers are in that scenario. A lot of sellers want to buy something different in our market. So you have to work both ends of the spectrum. Now, if we're creating a sense of urgency on the buyer side, or the market is, which we're going to talk about more here in a second, that will force their hand on the seller side. The way this conversation went with my clients that wanted to look at the house today that sold was when, after he said it's that time of year, and I said, yeah, and it's going to get more competitive. As the spring and summer markets get here, we don't expect things to slow down. Matter of fact, if rates continue to fall, that's going to make it more competitive, especially for those people that have been sitting on the fence, mainly homeowners. What I mean by that is a lot of homeowners that have 2, 3, 4% interest rates, they've been looking at the current rates and going, it's not worth moving. It's too expensive. But as that rate comes down and that gap narrows, now they're more motivated. Now they're going, okay, 5.75 is not 3, but it's manageable. They're also starting to understand, which is something I've been yelling from the mountaintops, both to my clients and to you guys, the longer they wait, prices will continue to go up. The rate at which interest rates are falling is less than the rate at which prices are going up. So even though rates may come down, if prices go up, it's going to cost them more anyways. We have a little mini video in the YouTube playlist, and I've used this in listing appointment conversations and buyer appointment conversations. And matter of fact, it has become so popular. Now my lender and my insurance broker are also using the same video or the same illustration in their conversations with clients. It's a simple pie graph. I draw a pie graph and I divide up the little slices. Now the first divider I do is right down the middle, half and half. The one half is sales price. The other half is chopped up into several different sections. One is interest rate, one is property taxes, one is insurance. There is an other slice, but that doesn't really factor into this point. The point being, sales price has the most impact on your monthly payment compared to anything else. The other point that's illustrated here is sales price, insurance, and taxes have all gone up, and they will continue to go up. So even if interest rates fall, if 3 out of the 4 factors have gone up, your overall monthly payment will still be higher. The whole point of this video is, here's why my monthly payment is so damn high. Because everybody talks about interest rates. Now, there are other connotations or reasons behind why a lower interest is better, because people talk about, well, I'm paying interest. That's wasted money. That's just going to the bank's pocket, blah, 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 blah. And my favorite is when they're like, well, over 30 years, I'm paying 600 grand in interest. And I tell them, you're never going to keep this loan for 30 years. You're either going to move, meaning you sell that house. You're going to refinance. You're going to pay it off sooner, or some combination of those 3. There are also negatives that could happen. You could foreclose. You could lose your job. You could will it to somebody else. Like, you're not going to stay in that loan for 30 years. It just doesn't happen. And if it does, it means it's because it's so affordable you don't need to change it. Meaning if somebody bought a house 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago and had 2.5%, 3% interest, and they're like, we're good. We don't need to move. But guess what? If they're paying 2.5%, 3% interest, they're probably going to pay their house off faster because they have extra cash. So they're going to throw it at their house and pay it off sooner if they don't plan on moving. So it's silly to use a 30-year cast of our interest paid as a reason to not act now. Because what also doesn't happen when that conversation is brought up is they don't talk about their net worth or what their property value is worth 30 years from now. On average, real estate goes up 3 to 5% a year. We've had 10% years the last several years. Even if you use 3 to 5%, call it 5% for easy math, 30 years from now, what's that property value? Significantly higher. So the percentage of the interest that you're paying is actually not nearly as high as people are trying to illustrate that. Now, I say this to you not to lecture. It's so that you have this ammo in your tool belt. And quite honestly, when people start talking that way of like, well, interest rates are too high, I'm going to be end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest over this 30-year loan, don't try to counter argue them like I just did. Don't say, well, you're never going to stay in that loan for 30 years. Remember, our superpower is asking questions. One of the first things I will ask, especially if it's a first-time home buyer, I will say something like, have you thought about how long you plan on keeping this house or how long you plan on staying in this house? Or another way of saying that is this your forever home? I was showing houses on Saturday to a first-time home buyer. Use this exact script. He's like, well, it's a little small, and I feel like I'm going to outgrow it pretty quick. And I said, have you thought about how long you plan on being in this first house? He has a pretty tight budget and a lot of needs for that budget. He wants to be under 290, but he wants a garage and he wants it fixed up and he wants it newer and he wants this and he wants that. And I'm like, this is what you get. This is why we're standing in Hopewell, because that's what it costs to be in that type of house. Another way of looking at that is, okay, are there things here that you'd be willing to sacrifice to get you closer to town? And he agreed. Maybe I don't have a garage out the gate. Or maybe it's a little bit older of a house. Maybe it was done in 2019 or 2017 instead of 2025. Redone, that is, not built. So these are the way you ask these questions as you start to build this case. Now, if they continue to argue with you on the interest rate thing, I consider that a C buyer or a not motivated buyer. And I'm going to move on to look for others. Some of you that have been here a while have heard me say the best way to handle a bad lead is a new lead. That's why we focus so much on lead generation. I have people on my pipeline that I met with in 2024 about buying a house. They're still on the pipeline, so I don't forget to follow up with them, but I'm not counting them on buying something anytime soon. That's why I have to keep adding fresh water to the bucket. There's an analogy for this. If you take a bucket, any size bucket, and you fill it up with dirty water, the best way to get that dirt out or to replace it with fresh water is to add fresh water in. If you hold a hose of fresh water on top of a bucket filled with dirty water and you let it run long enough, it will eventually overflow the dirt out and you will be left with a bucket full of fresh water. That hose full of fresh water is our lead generation efforts. That's meeting new people. That is why we start the day every day with lead generation, or that is our number one job as a business owner or as a real estate agent, is to lead generate for new opportunities. One of the ways we can be doing that right now is by educating the market and letting our people know, hey, it is the most affordable time in the last 3 years to borrow money to buy a house. By the way, according to NAR, National Association of Realtors, and Realtor.com, which then means according to everybody else, because they will also take this article and rip and duplicate it, Richmond is projected to be a top 10 market nationwide for both buyers and sellers for opportunities in 2026. Both of them. The reason why is because of our job market, because of things like data centers bringing more jobs, and because of our appreciating property values. I was talking with that buyer on Saturday. His sister was in town from New Jersey, and she could not believe that these type of houses that were 800 square feet were $275,000. And I said, if you drove 30 minutes closer to the city, this house is $400,000. And she was like, I can't imagine paying that. And I go, drive 2 hours north and see how much this house costs. You put an 800 square foot renovated house in DC and it's now $800,000. Now, she's from New Jersey, so you would think she would understand that because New Jersey property values are also outrageous. However, I think the part of New Jersey she's in is a little more affordable. And we have to understand this perspective when we're talking to our clients. If they've never owned a house, they're likely regurgitating information that they've either been told or that they've heard. It doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. The more you can ask questions and allow them to come to their own conclusions. Do you plan on staying in this house for 30 years? Well, no. Okay. How long do you plan on being here? Have you thought about that? I don't know, 5, 7, maybe 10 years at the max. Okay. Well, now we're talking about the interest paid over 10 years or over 5 years, not 30 years. Would you agree that that's a much more affordable calculation? Well, yeah, I think so, but it still feels too high. Okay. Let's talk about it a different way. Where are you currently living? I'm renting a house or I'm renting an apartment. Okay. Does your apartment rent stay fixed every year or does it go up? It goes up. Okay. How much of your rent are you putting in your pocket every month when you pay that? What? How much of your rent are you putting in your pocket each month when you pay it? By the way, the answer is zero. So you're telling me you're worried about paying interest and flushing that money down the toilet. Well, that's call it 6% of the price or the monthly payment. That's what the interest rates are. So you're keeping a larger portion of that monthly payment. Now, it's not 94%. Don't let them do that math because they're still paying taxes and insurance off of that. The principal is the amount that they're buying down the loan, but the amount that they're putting in their pocket is A, buying down the loan, and B, the equity growth of that house. If rent's going up every year and they're not keeping any of it, they're wasting more and more money every year. That is a fun calculation to do. If they're paying $2,000 a month in rent, they're wasting $24,000 a year. Compare that to the interest paid on a house that they're looking to buy. And you can have a lender partner help you with the calculation. Don't feel like you need to do it yourself. Now, I mentioned over the weekend I was showing houses. I mentioned Katrin and I discussed yesterday a property that she was dealing with. Katrin had what, 10 offers, you said?
Yeah, we were competing against 10 offers, but we were the first one to see it. We submitted an offer and the listing agent didn't have a deadline. Then there came a deadline and he was a kind of, well, we want to go to an open house and then my clients will make a decision. We knew that the open house not going to happen because of the weather. Then they shifted and they said, okay, on Sunday morning, all the offers have to be in and then they would make a decision. But he would never really disclose how many offers they received, etc. He kept saying best and highest, best and highest. And my clients and I were like, we cannot just toss money at them, not really knowing what we're up against. So then when he replied to us yesterday afternoon saying that they had 10 offers, I can see it. It was Woodland Henrico. It's right around the corner, beautiful backyard. I don't know, 2.5 acres, but it was a beautiful house. And I think what I saw with my listing in Spotsylvania, even though it's 45 minutes north, I did an open house in January. It was a washout day, and I still had three groups coming through. After this particular open house, when the interest came in lower, we had showings every single day. Like, another million buyers just came on the market. And I think this is that what we're up against right now, that there are so many buyers out there. Because I told my clients we're going out for showings later. I'm like, think about it now. 10 other people will look at the same houses that we're looking at, and we're gonna continue with this, offering competition. Every time we put an offer in, there will be maybe another 5 or 8 offers out there at the same time.
Yeah. So a couple things that you said that were perfect that I wanted to illustrate or reiterate. If we think about the groups of buyers that are looking at houses now and willing to write offers, we're considering that a pool of people. So whatever size that may be. Now, throughout the year, that pool is going to ebb and flow. The way Catherine just said it is perfect. Buyers are coming onto the market. Now, the reason why buyers might not be coming on the market, the top three reasons right now, number one, they wanted to wait till the holidays were through. So November to December, they were like, we're not making a move now. Holidays are happening. It's crazy. We got to travel. We got family coming in. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to do this. So that's number one. Those buyers are now in the market. So that pool got a little bit bigger. Number two, rates are too high. I want rates to come down. Well, rates came down. So now those buyers that were waiting for it to be under 6, they're in the market. And number three, I have to sell my house first. Well, those houses are now selling, so those buyers are coming into the market. Then there are also buyers that just now's when they want to move. Maybe 2025, they didn't think about making a move. And then they had the holidays and they had family come in and they go, we need to downsize because I don't want to host anymore. Or the opposite, we need more space because I want to keep hosting the family. Or school change, or job change, or divorce, or marriage, or baby, or all of these normal lifestyle changes that make people want to move. That's why the buyer pool does this all year long, because there are constantly buyers coming into the market and constantly buyers coming out of the market. Now, when we are seeing multiple offers, you need to educate your potential clients about what that means. Catherine's example is not the only one with multiple offers. I mentioned we tried to see a house today and it sold yesterday. There was another property that one of our other agents in coaching wrote an offer for on Friday. I know this because I was helping her with the offer. And then on Friday evening, I got a text from one of my buyers that said, can we go look at this house? And I said, no. And they were like, why? And I said, because it already has an offer in hand. They're expecting more, and you don't want a bidding war. We've already discussed this. Now, closed safe space here with you guys. I will always, always, always try to operate that way. Not that I will deny my clients from showing houses, but as your coach, when it happens, and this is, I think, the first time it's happened, if I know one of you has already written an offer, I will do whatever I can to help you guys win. Now, these particular buyers are also friends of mine, and they have a very kind of loose need of what they want. They're first-time home buyers. So it was not really affecting them for us to say, let's look at this house instead. If it was they needed a pool and 7 bedrooms and a finished basement and it had to be in this school district and there was the only option, then maybe we're going to have a conversation. When you know there are multiple offers in hand, unless the agent says the seller's not accepting it, which they will sometimes, it's good practice to use an escalation clause or an escalation offer. Sometimes agents will say, we're not accepting those, give us your highest and best, which if they're not willing to share any information, it's probably that scenario. Catherine's shaking her head. Yes, it may have been one of those. I don't like to spend too much time focused on multiple offer trainings because I don't want you thinking that it's always that scenario. I have seen it happen, and it actually happened on one of my listings where we did have 2 offers, and I let both agents know that there were 2 offers. One of them was $30,000 lower than the second one. And the second one, brand new agent, used to be with us, left to go to a different team, never sold a house before. She was operating as if it was a bidding war. Now I'm representing the seller, so I'm like, cool hit, go ahead, operate away, give us full asking, waive inspection stuff, close in 30 days. Go ahead. All I said was, there's another offer in hand. Now I let the first offer know, hey, we got a much better offer. Do you guys want to change anything? They came up $5,000. I said, cool, take it easy. Because the second offer was so much better. Now, when you're on the buyer side, the more questions you can ask the listing agent, the better. Some listing agents, as Katrin just illustrated, won't give information. That just is what it is. Again, remember, our superpower is asking questions. One of my favorite things to do here is, I know you can't share details. That said, would it be worth writing up if we were around blank? Don't give a number, give a percentage. Would it be worth us writing it up if we were around 10% over ask? Yes.
So I kind of reached out several times to the listing agent and I was like, out of all the offers you have, which place do we fall in? First 3, first 8, first 10? Like I kept asking questions and he wouldn't reply. So I knew that
Yeah.
the seller basically told him, don't share any information. But you know, it's almost like you cannot against not doing a home inspection. Some buyers absolutely don't want to do it. And then
Yep.
I guess we couldn't compete with cash. So I believe it will be, you know, a cash offer and they waived inspections. And this is something I guess my buyers will need to understand. But I think if the market is already that strong now, it's a kind of, you know, fearful knowing what's gonna come up in February, March, April. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's chop that up a little bit. So number one, some agents just simply won't answer.
mhm.
Number two, if you can get them on the phone, they will likely tell you more than now. Notice how I said if you can get them on the phone. I'm not saying you didn't try to call him. I'm just saying in general, if you can get them on the phone, sometimes they will give you more on the phone because it's not in writing. Um, I'm one of those agents. If you call me, I will tell you more than if you text me. Now, I might not answer because I like text and I'm usually busy. However, what I will also do sometimes is voice text back. So if you might say like, "Hey, trying to get an idea, do you have any offers in hand?" I might send a voice text back and say, "Yep, got a couple offers in hand. One of them looks really good. If you can come in above asking, you'd be in the running." Or if you can do anything with the other contingencies, appraisal, inspection, etc. Some of that is also negotiations, though. So keep in mind, now I get permission from all of my sellers to do this. It's part of my listing agreement. I put it in the additional terms. Listing agent has permission to discuss offer terms should we be in an offer, multiple offer situation. The reason why is I tell my sellers, if we have two offers at asking and a third offer is coming in, wouldn't you want me to share that our two offers are at asking to try to get that third offer to be above asking? They say, yes. Okay, that's my job. I'm not going to lose you money by sharing information. It's going to either be better. Now, I might lose an offer, but that's okay. If that offer was going to be at 640 and the other two are at 650, we don't care about the 640 offer. Unless it's cash, no inspection, no appraisal, which is why that follow-up comes in. Like, if you're not going to be high, are you waiving other things? Is it cash? Is it a quick close? My seller might not need a quick close, so that could be another thing too. Now, to pivot a little bit, let's get back in the car with our buyers here. So what Katrin said is an important part. When we're seeing multiple offers, or we're seeing bidding wars in January already, some buyers look at that as fear. Some agents will look at that as fear. It's like, oh crap, by the time we get to March or April, things are going to be crazy. I'm not going to be able to sell anything. That's not necessarily true, although it is important because we do want to say, and I said this to my clients this morning, we expect this to continue. We expect this trend to continue. Matter of fact, it'll only get worse as the year goes on because competition is going to increase. What that means for you as buyers is we have to look for other opportunities. I especially like the price decrease tab on the MLS for these opportunities because what that tells me is the house has been on the market for a certain amount of time that they've reduced the price. Now, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Buyer, this may mean we have to sacrifice on something. However, if we sacrifice on something, we may gain in another area. AKA, if we are looking at houses that are price reduced, it may need new carpet and paint, or it may need new flooring or new counters in the kitchens. That being said, if we are paying less because we're not in a bidding war, sometimes we can get the seller to pay for that. I closed 17 buyers in 2025. On average, each buyer got $9,500 in credits from the seller. In large part because of things like I just said. Very rarely did we get into houses that were bidding wars. I think there were one or two of them, maybe, where there was other buyers. We target these houses that have not been on the market or that have been on the market for 7 days or more, so then we can get these opportunities. And I'll tell the buyers that. Would you rather have $10,000 from the seller and put that towards a few improvements on the house? Or do you want to pay your top dollar, your best offer to try to get into the house? And by the way, you still might not get it. One of the last closings I had of the year, Katrin knows them well because they looked at houses for 6 months and she helped me with several showings and the inspections. I know they wrote offers on 4 different houses. They were even under contract on one of them and backed out because of HOA stuff. They lost at least 3 offers due to bidding wars, if not more. I'm remembering 3. There might have been more. It finally came down to, hey, let's stop spinning our wheels on houses that are going to have bidding wars and trying to compete because, quite honestly, the wife didn't want to compete. She kept trying to get a deal or to steal a house. And I was like, you're not going to be able to do that when you're looking in Glen Allen, Innsbrook. So you either need to change your area or change your tactics. Which, by the way, and I tell people, I'm like, that's my job. My job is to help you do that, help navigate these waters. Let's take advantage of some of these listings or opportunities houses. By the way, that's a great touch point to your folks that you've met at open houses or that you've talked to, and maybe they're not quite looking at houses yet. You can say, hey, I know we talked a little bit about what you're looking for in a house. I've had some success lately, or if you're brand new, our team has had some success lately with getting seller credits on certain types of homes. Would that interest you? If they say no, they're dumb. They'll say yes. And then you say, cool, can we set up a time to get coffee or to do a phone call or to do a Zoom to chat a little bit more about that? And then you tell them what I just told you. We look for price reduced houses. We look for houses that have been on the market for 7 to 10 days or more. Typically, that means it's an area of opportunity. This also works for buyers that are in a lease, especially if the lease is through like September. The buyer that I was showing houses to on Saturday is a prime example of this. His lease is through, I can't remember if it's August or September. And I said, are you familiar? Do you know if there's a lease break fee or what it would cost to get out of your lease early? He said, yeah, I think it's 2 months rent. And I said, would you act sooner if I could get the seller to cover that cost and we found the right home for you? And he said, yes, I don't see why not. I said, great. I'll start sending you options where I think that's a possibility. By the way, it's not bidding war options. It's homes that have been on the market 7 to 10 days or longer where I can get a seller credit. Now, on the seller side, we want to let them know some of these types of things, especially if I have a potential listing coming up in the Woodland area in Glen Allen or Woodman area of Glen Allen, wherever the house was. I should be letting them know, hey, this one just got 10 plus offers over the weekend. I don't know what it finally closed at. I'll let you know when it does. And yet that's important for us. It shows the buyer activity is strong in this area. We should consider moving sooner because as the actual spring market gets here and more homes come on the market, that's more competition for you as sellers. Let's use that exact stance to illustrate 2 more things that'll create a sense of urgency. For buyers, there are less buyers in the market right now than there will be in April. Because a lot of people still believe the old adage of sell in the spring, buy in the spring, or sell in the summer, buy in the summer. Some people want to wait till school's out too.
And nobody wants to move in the winter. They feel like
Exactly.
unpacking in the winter is not a good thing.
Yeah. Well, that's what we got movers for. By the way, Cavalier Moving, our friendly, lovely moving partner that does a lot of sponsorships, they're coming out with a new referral program. So not only will your clients get 10% off, you'll get $50 or something similar to that for every client you refer them that uses them. So why not make a little extra cash by also referring the number 1 mover in Richmond? I've used them since they've opened. They're great. And so more to come on that. But we want to let our buyers know there will be more competition as the year goes on, especially if rates fall. So we talk about one way of avoiding the competition is looking for properties that aren't going to be in competition. Another way of avoiding competition is by acting now instead of waiting. By the way, that's also going to lock in today's pricing instead of the future pricing, which is going to be more expensive. We talked about that pricing conversation at the beginning too. So you're telling these buyers, if you want to get the best deal, let's act on today's prices against the least amount of competition. If the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to get because you're going to be competing with more people and prices are going to go up, even if rates fall. For the seller side of things, the same kind of illustration comes true. As the market goes on or as the year goes on, more homes come on the market. That's more competition. That gives buyers an opportunity to choose another house instead of yours. We just showed there's plenty of buyer demand. This house just got 10 offers. Buyers are out there. By the way, if buyers are looking now, we know they're serious. Over the summer, some people look at homes because it's fun and it's warm. So you have more showings of people that aren't necessarily as motivated. Versus right now, buyers are not going out in 20-degree weather to look at houses unless they have to move. So take advantage of the serious buyers. And this is another way you can ask that question. Okay, Mr. Seller, if you were to list your home for sale today, would you rather have 5 showings and get an offer or 10 showings and get an offer? Most sellers will say, well, it depends on the offer. Okay, let's assume they're the same offer. I'd rather do 5 showings. Okay, that's today's market. in the spring and summer, we see more showings, and it's not like we see a huge jump in list to sales price ratio. It will steadily do this over the year, but I would rather take advantage of today's prices. By the way, Mr. Seller, are you also looking to buy a house? Yes. Okay, well, let's take advantage of today's prices on the buy side too. It typically, and when I say typically, it's like 90% of the time, you come out ahead by taking advantage of today's prices on the buy side compared to what you sacrifice on the sale side. Meaning the cost of waiting is typically more expensive for you to sell and buy. Even if I sell my house for a little bit more in June, I also got to pay a little bit more on the buyer side. So that little extra gain in equity I got is actually eaten up on the new house. By the way, the new house is where your payment is. That's where you're going to live. That's what you're going to be paying over the next X amount of years that you're in that house. So wouldn't you rather that be as affordable as possible versus maxing out what you can get on the sale side? Well, yeah, okay. Then we need to act sooner. But I'm not ready to list. Can you be ready in the next 30 to 45 days? Yes. Okay, let's take advantage of the coming soon process. The only negative to the coming soon process is we decide the list price today. However, it's also a way to tease the market or test the market. If you price it effectively and you price it accordingly and you're incoming soon, you will get agents reaching out to you. Hey, Catherine, I saw 123 Main Street incoming soon. Are you still planning on going on the market at the end of February, or is there any chance it'll come on the market sooner? That tells me people are interested. And then I can relay that back to the seller. Hey, I heard from an agent over the weekend, they're interested in the house. Now, quick broker rule update. You cannot show a house while it's incoming soon. So if somebody does say they're interested and they're like begging you to get in to break down the door, ask the seller if you can go active or start showing sooner. Don't show it coming soon, even if it's a secret, even if it's off market, don't do that. Now, if it's not incoming soon and it's an owner office exclusive, that's different. Then it has to be shown by a KW agent to keep the rules in check. Yes.
I quickly wanted to say too for all the PC agents now, because lead gen, this is that what you should do, especially over the weekend with open houses. We know there is a pool of buyers out there, low interest rates. Not everybody is represented. This would be the time for you, Saturday and Sundays, to snatch and really get leads. And if these people are serious, you would be able to close them out 30, 60, 90 days down the line. So I know Nicole did open houses over the weekend. I don't know if she's on, if she has any feedback, but it doesn't mean it's winter, it's slow. Like what we say, the sense of urgency is really there because people are right now in the business looking for homes. They really seriously want to buy. So I think any open houses that you can service, execute, shadow, host, whatever it is, you should absolutely do it.
And even if they're not, that's a great point. And even if they're not serious yet, they probably will be, or at a minimum, there's somebody that you can add to the database and start building a relationship with. I got referred a client over the last weekend, a week ago, from my insurance provider that they're friends because their kids play softball together. Wife's a teacher, husband's a doctor. Husband's finishing his fellowship to be a surgeon, which will be done in August. Wife wants to be in their new house before August. Husband's ready to whenever, because obviously the wife makes the decisions. Now, that being said, they're looking at a $700,000-$800,000 house. They've already been to several open houses, several weekends of open houses, and they didn't have an agent. And they happened to be friends with Philip, and they said, who should we know? And Philip said, this guy, not only is he great, he does a hero program, so you'll get a little bit of money back. They're interested in the physician's loan. Our lender does physician's loans. So it's just a match made in heaven. That being said, if he had not referred them to me, or if he had waited to refer them to me, they could have connected with an agent they really liked at an open house, and then I would have lost that opportunity. So you should be the agent doing the open houses and stealing leads from me. Now, last little bit on that too,
I
before
have a
we kind of wrap
question.
up. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I have done open houses, either shadowing or either I did it myself, and no one shows up. showing up. And the ones we did have, when people showed up, maybe like two, they say they were interested, or you could tell that they just came through. They not ready. And they either had a agent with another company. So my thing is, as a new agent, I'm trying to brainstorm how I could attract buyers. So this weekend, I did go film homes and advertise them on my social media page, and etc. But it's not like I'm getting any lead generation from that. So I know it takes more than a weekend and everything like that. But I'm just trying to find out what else I can do. I mean, I've been busy with one agent with the office. I did like four house shadowing for her clients, and I did a final walkthrough for her client. Um, but other than that, I'm not getting the lead generation that I want from open houses. So
Yeah. So great question. So that's actually where I was going next. So perfect segue. Your open houses are what you make of them. So we have a couple of recordings on the YouTube channel of open house trainings. We're actually revamping that up too, and it's going to be a class that's offered once a month on open house training, both from a best practice standpoint and from a rule standpoint. Now that will probably be taught by me. It may be taught by other agents as well. Um, the busier your open house is solely related to the activities that you do leading up to the open house. Now, activities you do are things like door knocking, are things like signs and how many and where you put them, are things like social media, are things like inviting people. There's also those are the things that are in your control. There are some things that are more out of your control, and it also depends on to an extent. It's also dependent on the market, or the office. Excuse me. What I mean by that is the listing itself. So the listing's been on the market for 6 months and hasn't done a price reduction, and it's been stale, or they've done an open house every other weekend before you. It might be a slower open house, and that's just part of it. The
yeah,
good news about open house,
that's what I'm finding
yeah.
out. It's
So
been on the lot market for a long period of time, and
yeah,
they
so that's
drop it.
probably
Yeah.
why that one was slow. Now, some of that is out of your control because our office right now has 8 active listings. So that tells me as a coach, our office needs more listings. And it may just not be an opportunity to do open houses right now. So that's where you can do things like you did, step up and do videos or film other tours. And you can also do that while you're at an open house. Now, one of my favorite tools that people often overlook is when you're doing an open house, what's available for sale around that area. And a strategy we've coached to in the past is if I'm hosting 123 Main Street, I'm going to have 2 MLS printouts of homes that are like it that are cheaper in the area, and 2 MLS printouts of homes that are like it that are more expensive in the area. Now, maybe the more expensive ones gained you a garage or first floor master. Maybe the cheaper ones are a little bit smaller or lose some square footage or lose a garage, or it's a 1 car instead of a 2 car. But that is an immediate hook when people walk in and they're like, oh, I like it, but I wish it had this. Well, did you see 4, 5, 6 around the corner? I can set up a showing for you to look at it if you're not already working with an agent, or I can send you more details. Now, this is all kind of elaborated on in that open house training. The other thing that I would say, I'll get you in a second, Katrin. The other thing I would say to the lead generation efforts too, the number one thing you can be doing right now is reaching out to people you already know, especially if you're new, letting them know that you're in real estate, or just checking in on how they're doing. If you call somebody that you know, or you text somebody that you know, or you voice text, or you FaceTime, like we said at the beginning of the call, and you ask them how they're doing or how their family is, they're going to have a conversation with you. They're probably going to ask you how you're doing. That's where you can say, I got into real estate and I'm pretty excited. This year's supposed to be a good one. Oh, wow. What made you get into real estate? Well, I'm really interested in helping people. I've always loved houses. I like watching HGTV. Now I get to help people navigate what I think is a pretty big purchase or a pretty big sale. That's awesome. How's the market look? Well, it looks really good. It's actually been competitive. Hey, by the way, if you're thinking about making a move, I'd love to be the person for you. And here's the new tagline that I wanted to close out today's training with before Katrin had something. I am here when you need it. Even if you're not looking to buy or sell, there are other ways that I give value back to my people, AKA when your toilet leaks and you need a plumber, when you want to get a new roof quote, when you want to take a look at your insurance, when you want to see if you have bugs in your house and termite control. any vendor that you could possibly need in or out of the house. You also may want a financial provider. You may want a CPA. You may want an attorney. These are areas that I like to build a database for, so I can give my people a recommendation when they need it. Catherine, where were you gonna add?
I just wanted to add, so there's maybe three things that I find very helpful. All of my open house have my name and my phone number. Usually when I put signs up, I do get text or calls. Where's the home? Any details, etc. Number two, I wanted to say in your command, in your database, use the smart plans. You can set up an email that goes out to everybody and talk about Happy New Year, interest rates are lower, 3-year low, who do you know, anybody to refer to. You could put up like a script and then send it out to everybody in your command database. And then the last thing is I need to say that I'm a kind of delayed, but I'm still texting some people of my SOI, hey, Happy New Year. Sorry I'm delayed. How's it going? What's the family doing? Haven't seen you in a while. And this is how the conversation starts. And then they say, oh, my neighbor's looking for a realtor. And then it's like, oh, great, I can help. So it's like this constant communication. And I think,
That's great.
yeah, in the beginning, it's maybe harder because you have to kind of getting into it. But I do it, on the move, on the fly. Am I gonna drive in my car and think about, oh my God, I haven't talked to Michelle for like, 3 weeks. Let me check in with Michelle. And then it's like on the move. And I think the open houses, as long as you put signs out there that have your name and your number, then it's out there. You're publicized. People see it, people read it, people will remember it. And if you go in a particular neighborhood several times, despite the homes has been on the market for a long time, people will remember the name. They say, let me take a QR code or let me snap a photo or something, and they have you then on their phone.
That's great. The other thing I was going to add to that you made me think of is we were on a call. It's all the MAPS coaches, but we were masterminding about something, and it was brought up the Happy New Year text, and several of us, myself included, are having more response and more engagement doing it now versus had we had done it January 1st. There are tons of, I mean, I got them myself from people that were just like, Happy New Year. And I'm like, I can tell you copy and pasted this and sent it to everybody in your contacts. And you think you're being special because you added a gift to it. And it doesn't matter if you got little fireworks saying Happy New Year, because I know you sent this to 400 other people. But if I'm texting somebody on January 19th and saying Happy New Year, hope you're doing well, let's catch up soon, they're going to read it because they're not getting those anymore. And actually, it was funny. Another agent and coach on the call said he sends Happy New Year texts all the way through like April or June or April or May. And then somebody else was like, I've sent them in July before. And they're like, what? How are you? And he's like, then they don't know if it's this year, if it's next year. They don't know. But it's the same thing. I'm saying happy holidays, Happy New Year. And he was being a little bit sarcastic. And yet there is some truth to that. You can kind of laugh at your own expense if you say, hey, Merry Christmas in July. Like, it's funny because they're going to go, what? And you're going to go, got your attention, didn't I? How you doing? And you can like just play it off. Now, be authentic. If you're not that kind of like sarcastic satire humor like I am, they might go, okay, weirdo, delete. But if they got a Merry Christmas in July from me, they're going to go, this dude's up to something. What are you talking about? And I'm going to be like, check your mailbox or something coming from me as a little gift. Haha, hope you're doing well, man. Because I do Popeye gifts. So they expect these type of things. The more you can reach out to your people now, the easier it is to reach out to them again in April or May, and then again in August, and then again in December. You don't have to call them every single day or every single month. Just get in a routine. Now, last thing I'll add to that, and we've done this on trainings, is there's a routine or a system out there called DTD2, which stands for do the database, and the 2 is 2 letters per week throughout the year, and it's the letters of the last name. The point of it is to eliminate call bias. We'll go over this again in another training at another time, but this allows you to start going through. You should be reaching out to everybody you know. Okay, we don't want to just go through our phone and pick our favorite people. Now, sometimes it happens, like Katrin said, you're driving down the road and you're like, I haven't talked to Joel in forever. I got to send Joel a text. Now, I might send him a text right then. I might call him right then, or I might put a note in my phone to call him tomorrow, depending on what you're doing. And so you may think of that, but at the same time, if I have a system in place where I'm calling all of the H last names in the 4th week, well, then I know I'm going to reach out to Joel anyways. And so then you can start adding these type of things in. Okay, that's it for today. Does anybody have any questions before we log off? And Shanita, I hope that helps. We'll add more to what you're kind of talking about because you're not the only one feeling it. You're just the only one that says it.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I wanted to follow up on the economic model and the lead gen. Feedback on that.
Yep.
I sent mine over. I just don't know if you had
Yep.
a chance to look at it.
Yeah. So we'll reach out, or I'll reach out and talk to you kind of one-on-one about yours specifically. But I am still waiting on a lot of others from other people. The whole point being the economic model is to start putting some math behind your goals of how many houses you want to sell. And then the lead gen model starts to tell us where are those leads going to come from. So I'd recommend going back and watching that lead gen model training we did, because ideally we'd have 2 to 3 areas of business that we're going to go after. Now, I always recommend agents in coaching. It's your database, like we just talked about, reaching out to people, VTD2 type stuff, and then open houses, because most people that are thinking about buying or selling for now business are going to open houses. It may take several open houses before you get a legitimate lead. I'm not saying every open house you do, you're going to walk away with business opportunities, but you should grow that. And then the third one would be, do I need another area, or do I think I can get enough out of database and open houses? That would be your lead gen model. Then we plan a calendar off of that. So that will be the one-on-one step that we'll do together, or we can even do a group-wide training where we say, okay, I want to sell 20 houses. This is where I'm going to get my business from. What does my week look like? There are also going to be office-wide trainings on the GPS and 411, which are 2 tools that we use to do that. So your GPS is 3 priorities. That's your 3 lead gen models. So it's going to be number 1, database. Here are the 5 things I do to get business from my database. Number 2, open houses. Here are the 5 things I do to get stuff from my open houses. And number 3 would be either a third area, or it may be something like growth. And these are the 5 things I'm going to do to grow as an agent. I'm going to attend these classes. I'm going to attend group coaching. I'm going to pick a shadow or an accountability partner. I'm going to do this PLE because I have to within 30 days of a year of getting my license for 30 credit hours. And then I'm going to attend the MLS trainings, whatever it may be. We'll build some stuff on that. And the 4-on-1 is how are you held accountable to those type of things. But yes, we will expand upon that. I haven't forgotten about it. I'm just hoping I get some more in because I only have a few from people. So that'll be a good log off point. Go back and watch the economic model training and the lead gen model trainings on the YouTube video. If you have questions, reach out to me. You can text me, email me at any time. And otherwise, hope you stay warm and safe. And I'll see you later this week.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Bye-bye.